To start, we see that we have cosine inverse times sine inverse of 2x. And so we have a variable times a variable, so we are going to need to use our product rule. So our first function is going to be our cosine inverse of 2x function. And then our second function will be our sine inverse of 2x function. Now, keep in mind, cosine and sine inverse, they have the same fraction when you take their derivative. The only difference for cosine inverse and sine inverse is cosine inverse will have a negative in front of it. And keep in mind, when you memorize this fraction, what usually is going to happen is this x is going to get replaced with the inner. And then after you do that, you're going to multiply by the derivative of the inner. Okay? All right, so our first function's derivative, again, we do have an inner function here of 2x. So what will happen is everywhere in this fraction that I have an x, I'm going to replace it with parentheses 2x, and that will give us our derivative of our outer. So we will have 1 over the square root of 1 minus, our x gets replaced with 2x quantity squared. Now remember, cosine is the function where you have a negative in front of all of those fractions. So we have a negative and then in front of the fraction. All right, now something that is a little weird about the simplification here that a lot of students will miss is that when you have 2x squared, keep in mind that really what that is, not to be silly about this, but this 2x squared is really 2x times 2x. And nobody in their right mind, if they saw 2x times 2x, would say that's 2x squared. They would say that that is 4x squared. So when you have this quantity 2x squared, you have to distribute this to the 2 factor as well as to the x factor. So this will become minus 4x squared. All right, now our second function's derivative is going to have a similar structure. Oh, excuse me, and we are not finished with that derivative yet. I'm skipping ahead here. We're not finished with the derivative yet because we have to multiply that by the derivative of the inner. So the inner function is 2x, so the derivative will be 2. So we will just have a negative 2 in our numerator at that point. All right, now our second function's derivative, again, same structure. We have 1 minus, and then our inner function, which is 2x quantity squared. And then we multiply that by the derivative of our inner function, which will be 2. Okay, so our second function's derivative is looking like 2 over the square root of 1 minus, and then again, this parentheses, we distribute the 2 to both of those, so 4x squared. All right, so we are using our product rule, and the pertinent pieces here are going to be the first function, its derivative, second function, and its derivative. All right, so plugging into the product rule, we will have y prime is equal to sine inverse of 2x times negative 2. And I'm going to put that in parentheses just to really emphasize that that is a negative that's being multiplied. And then 1 minus 4x squared. And then plus the other diagonal cosine inverse of 2x times 2 over the square root of 1 minus 4x squared. Okay. All right, so hopefully everybody is on board that our two terms, they have a common denominator. These two terms both have this denominator of square root of 1 minus 4x quantity squared. So what we can do here is we can combine this as one big line and write it as square root of 1 minus 4x squared, because those are the denominators for both of the terms. Now, you could, if you wanted to, factor out a 2 GCF, or you could just leave it as negative 2 sine inverse of 2x plus positive 2 cosine inverse of 2x. So either way is fine. You could factor out a 2, or you could just leave it like this.